Hi, in this video we're gonna build a to-do list with Angular, and I already built a similar project a while ago, and the project we're building will be a combination of these two videos, to-do list and to-do list with edit. The reason I built this new project because this is the newest Angular version 18, and the previous projects were built with Angular 14. Starting with Angular 16, Angular team introduced quite a few changes, and those changes will be implemented in this project. So here are some of the changes. First, it's going to be standalone component structure, and it's a default structure for all new projects in Angular. Second, we're going to look at the new syntax of these structural directives, NgIf and NgFor. And lastly, we're going to really briefly look at this signals feature, and it's a brand new feature for Angular introduced in Angular 16 and became a stable feature in Angular 17. Before we start building this project, let's look how it works. I'm going to add a few tasks here. And I can mark them completed. I can edit them. And I can save them. And I can also delete them. This task count at the end of the list is the new feature, and this is where we're using signals. Let's say a few words about the setup I'm using. First of all, you'll need some kind of code editor, and I'm using Visual Studio Code. It's one of the best code editors in the market, and it's completely free. You can install it if you go to this website. I'm gonna put this link in description of this video. You will also need to install Node, and when you install Node, it will come with Package Manager, and you might already have it. To check if you have it, let's go back to VS Code. Let me close this, and I'm gonna open a terminal. So to do that, click on View, Terminal. And here I'm gonna type npm -v, enter. And if you have the number of the version, it means you have it installed. If the version is below 10, you should probably update it. And it's really easy to do that. Just type npm install npm at latest. I'm gonna run this command, enter. As you can see, I had one package added, and if I type again npm-v, I'm gonna just use the arrows. I have the same version because I already updated it yesterday. And the last thing you'll need is Angular CLI, command line interface, and it's a little program that you load to your computer that will help you with a lot of tasks in Angular. We're gonna use Angular CLI to create a project, to create a component, to start the project, and you can do so much more things with Angular CLI. To check if you already have Angular CLI, you can type ng version, enter. And as you can see, I have Angular 18.2.9 installed. And if I want to load the latest version, I need to type npm installed and then -g, and it means it's going to be globally accessible. Then I'm going to type @angular/CLI at latest. Enter. The packages are going to be downloaded. And then if the version was updated, you're going to have a different number here. I have the same number because I just updated it, but for you it might be a different number. So that's all you need to work with Angular, and let's start building our project from scratch. I created this folder, to-do list, on my C drive, and I opened this folder in VS Code. So to do that, you can just go to File, Open Folder, and get to that folder you just created. Now let's open the terminal again. You can click again View, Terminal, or you can use the shortcut Control backtick, and backtick is located in the left top corner of your keyboard. So let's select it. And to create a new project, I'm gonna use Angular CLI, and all Angular CLI commands, they start with ng, and next word is new. And I'm gonna call my project to do. And before I press enter, I want to mention that the default structure of all new projects are with standalone components, and that's what's gonna happen. But if for some reason you want to create a project how it was before Angular 17, you can use a special flag. To do that, it's gonna be space, 2 dashes, standalone, equals false. Let me remove this flag, and I'm gonna press enter. With arrow up and down, you can choose what styling structure you want to have. and I'm going to use the CSS structure. I'm gonna press enter. Here I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna type N and press enter. And Angular CLI will start creating a project for me. As you can see on the left side, I have this newly created folder, and all these new files that Angular CLI is creating is going inside that folder. And let me go inside this folder. All code we're gonna write is gonna be inside this source folder. Let me expand it. And go inside this app folder. These 4 files, app component CS, app component HTML, app component TS, and this is spec TS, this is just the test file, they're all part of our root component. And if you look inside our app component HTML file, we have a bunch of boilerplate code. Let's run this project and see what we get out of the box. To do that, we're gonna use Angular CLI command ngserve. Now, I'm gonna type it right here, ngserve, and I'm gonna get an error, and I'm gonna tell you why. Press enter. I want to show you that because I do this all the time. After I create a project, I try to run it in the same folder, and I'm getting this error. And when you get this error, it means you're just in the wrong folder. You need to switch to this to-do folder. So there are a couple ways you can do it. You can just open this folder in a new terminal. So you can just right-click on this folder and click Open in Integrated Terminal. And as you can see now, I have 2 terminals here, and I can just delete the previous one. Or you can use a cd command. It stands for change directory. Let me go first one level up. And you can type cd to do, and you're gonna end up in this folder. Now here I'm gonna type again ngserve, enter. The application is successfully compiled, and to see that application I need to go to this link. So I'm gonna press Ctrl and click on this link, and my project is gonna show up in a new tab. Let me show a different way you can start your project. Let me close both those tabs, and I'm gonna stop the application. I'm gonna press Ctrl C, and now instead of typing ngserve, I'm gonna type ngserve space -o. This command will compile my project and will also open it in a new browser, and this is what this -o flag is for. Let me press enter. As you can see, my project again is running in a new tab. Let me close this tab, and let me put this browser and VS Code side by side so we can see everything better. And the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna delete all this boiler code. Inside this app component HTML, I'm gonna click, and I'm gonna press Ctrl A to select everything, and I'm gonna press delete button. And when I save it, I'm gonna use a shortcut Ctrl S. My project is going to be recompiled, and as you can see, we don't have anything on the screen. Before we start building our project, let's install some kind of styling library. One of the most popular libraries for Angular is Angular Material, but it's a little bit more complicated to use, and I use it in other projects, but for this small project, I will be using Bootstrap. Bootstrap is a really nice library, and it's really easy to use. Before we install it, let's just place something on the screen. I'm gonna place the header inside an h1 tag. I'm gonna type h1, press tab, and I'm gonna type to-do list. I'm gonna press Ctrl S to save. And let's also place a button below. I'm gonna type button, press tab, and it's going to be our submit button. Ctrl S to save. As you can see, our button is not styled at all, but as soon as we install Bootstrap, it's gonna look completely different. Let's stop our application. I'm gonna press Ctrl C. And let me clear our terminal. I'm gonna type cls, enter. And to install Bootstrap, I'm gonna type npm install bootstrap, enter. Bootstrap was added to my project, and after I ran this command, 2 things happened. A folder with name Bootstrap was placed inside this node modules folder, and also if you go to this package log.json file and scroll down, you will see that on line 19 we have this Bootstrap and version line, and this is what will help us keep the version locked for this specific project. So next time we get it from GitHub, the same version of Bootstrap will be loaded into our project. Let me close this tab, and let's try to add some Bootstrap styles. I'm gonna type class btn, And this is one of the Bootstrap styling classes. Let me save it, Control S. Let me start the application again to see what happens. I'm gonna type ngserve. And I don't need to add -o because our browser is already open. I'm gonna press enter. As you can see, nothing happened to the button, and it's because we have the packages, but our project doesn't know where to find it. To do that, let's go inside this Angular JSON file. I'm gonna double click on it, and I'm gonna scroll down to this line 29, styles, and I'm gonna make some space, and I'm gonna put quotation marks here, and don't forget this comma right after that. And now I'm gonna go inside this folder node modules, and I'm gonna scroll down to the Bootstrap folder. I'm gonna expand it, expand this folder, and inside the CSS folder, let me make it bigger, I'm gonna find this file, bootstrap min CSS, and I'm gonna right click on it. And it doesn't matter which one I choose, copy path and copy relative path. Let's just do copy path. And I'm gonna close this Explorer window. And inside those quotation marks that we created, I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna paste that line. Here, I don't need anything in front of this node modules word. I'm gonna delete it. And I need to change all backslashes into forward slashes. Let me save it, Control S. And to see the effects, I need to restart our application. So in terminal, I'm gonna press Control C. And I'm gonna type again ngserve, enter. And as soon as project is restarted, as you can see, I have this submit button that looks like a different button now. Let's change the color of the button. I'm gonna go back to our template, app component HTML file, and I'm gonna add one more class, btn primary. Control S to save. As you can see, our button now has a nice blue color. After installing Bootstrap, let's continue working on building our application. And right now, all our code inside this root component. It's not how we usually do it. This app component HTML is used to reference other components. And to make it more realistic, let's create a separate component, put this code inside that component, and reference that component inside this root component. Let me stop the application. I'm gonna go to the terminal and press Ctrl C. And to create a new component, I'm gonna type ng generate component. And I need to put a name of the component. So let's call it to-do list. Press enter. Angular CLI created 4 files and it placed inside this to-do list folder. We don't need this file with extension spec.ts. This is a testing file. So we're not gonna do any tests, so we can delete this file and it's not going to affect anything. And as long as we're doing it, let's just delete this one too. We don't need this file, it's just polluting our application. And let me copy all this, Control A, and I'm going to actually cut it, Control X. Let me save it. And I'm going to move it inside this new component, to-do list, HTML. So here I have just to-do list works. I'm going to remove this and I'm going to place Control V, what we copied from our root component. I'm going to save, Control S. Let me restart our application. I'm going to again type ngserve. As you can see, everything is gone here. So to put it back, let's go to our to-do list TypeScript file. I'm gonna double click here and I'm gonna use this selector app to-do list, Control C. Let's go back. Let's go back to app component HTML and I'm gonna open a tag, Control V, paste it there, close the tag. And as you can see, I have an arrow, and the reason for that, because this app component doesn't know anything about this to-do list component. To make it work, I'm gonna go back to this to-do list TS file and I'm going to copy all this. Class to-do list component. Let's go back to our root component TypeScript file. And here inside imports, after router outlet, I'm gonna put comma, Control V, I'm gonna paste this to-do list component. Now it's underlined, I'm gonna point at it, and I'm gonna click on quick fix, and it's gonna say add import from to-do list component. I'm gonna click it. As you can see, I have an import statement here, and it said this to-do list component will be imported from this folder. Let me save it, Control S here, and I need to save it here too, Control S. As you can see, the content is back on the screen. From this point, we're going to be just building our project inside this to-do list component. Let me close all tabs. I'm going to right click here, and I'm going to click close all. And I'm going to open the three files, our template, our TS file, and our CSS file. Let's go to our HTML file. And before we add anything else, let's add some space around these elements. So I'm going to put the whole thing inside the div. So I'm going to make space. I'm going to type div, tab. I'm going to make space, and I'm going to grab these two elements, Control X, Control V. I'm going to put it inside here. Let's add a class. And Bootstrap has a built-in class. It's called container. Control S to save. And as you can see, our elements are moved to the right now. Let's style our to-do list, and let me actually change it to lowercase o. I'm gonna go to our CSS file, and here I'm gonna give some styles to our h1 tag. Let's align it, put it in the center. So I'm gonna say text align, and we're gonna put it to center. And let's move it down, maybe 40 pixels. So I'm gonna give it a margin top 40 pixels. Let me save it. In the next step, let's bring an input field right here. And for that, let's go to the Bootstrap website. I'm gonna go to the docs, and I'm gonna scroll down to the forms overview. And here I'm gonna just grab code for this form. I'm gonna just copy the whole thing back to VS Code. And there will be a button already there, so let me just delete this. Control V, let me save it. And I won't need this password field and this checkbox. Let me delete it. So these two divs, I don't need it. Delete, Control S. And let's adjust this field. I'm gonna change this email address to task to complete. Control S to save. I'm gonna change type of the input to text. The ID will be task. I'm gonna change it here too. And this ARIA label, for users who cannot see, a screen reader special application will read the content of the web page. And we need to change this to task, Control S. This text will become our error message. So the ID will be error message. And the text will be required field. Let me save it. Let's also make it red. So I'm gonna grab this ID, go to our CSS file. And since it's an ID, I'm gonna put hash ID, and in curly braces, I'm gonna give it a color of red. Save. Let's give it a placeholder so we have something to start inside this input box. So here I'm gonna type placeholder. And let's say enter your task here. Save. Let's put a line underneath. We're gonna use this special tag HR. And underneath we're gonna create a table. And for that, let's go back to the Bootstrap side. Under this content section, I have tables. And you can look at all these different styles for tables. I'm gonna just grab this first one, and I'll copy the whole thing and I'll adjust it. So I'm gonna copy it. Let's go back. And below our line, let's make some space and paste everything, Control V. I have some errors because in Angular this @ sign has special meaning, so let's just delete it. And I don't need all rows, so I'll need the header, and I need just one row inside this table body. So I'm gonna remove these two rows. And let me delete this, Control X. Let me save it. And I don't need this first column, so let me just delete this. And I don't want this bolded, so I'm gonna remove this TH from this row. Control S to save. And I need 5 columns. So let me copy this 2 more times. I'm gonna press Control C, Control V, Control V, and I'm gonna adjust my headers. So the first one is gonna be task, second completed, next one edit, save, and delete. Here, let me create 3 more. Control C, Control V, Control V, Control V. I'm gonna just hard code it. I'm gonna type dishes. You can put something else. Here it's gonna be completed. And inside these 3, I'm gonna need buttons. So I'm gonna remove this and I'm gonna put a button there. So I'm gonna type button, tab, and the first is gonna be edit. And let me just copy paste it here too. Second one will be save, and the last one is going to be delete. Let me save it. Let's add some styling, so I'm gonna use class, and it's going to be a button. And let's give them different colors. So the first one will be an orange color, and in Bootstrap it's btn warning. Let's also make it small, btn-sm. Let me copy it and paste it to other buttons too. And this button is gonna be info. And the last button is gonna be danger, so it's gonna give it a red color. I also want these buttons to be the same size, so let's create a custom class. Let's call it action. And I'm gonna add those classes here too. Let me save it. I need to go to my CSS file now. And since it's a class, I'm gonna put that, the name of the class. And we're gonna give it a width of maybe 70 pixels. I think it looks pretty good. Let's now change this completed word to a checkbox. Let's go back to Bootstrap. Let's go back to forms. And we had the checkbox here. I think it looks pretty nice. We don't need this label. The only thing here, we need this input line. Let's go back to our template. And here, instead of this word completed, I'm gonna paste that line. Let me save it. It looks better, but I don't like that you cannot hardly see it, so we're gonna adjust it a little bit. So let's give it an ID of a checkbox. And let's go to our CSS file. So it's gonna be hash checkbox, curly braces, and let's give it a border so we can see it better. Let's make it a solid line, and it's gonna be 1 pixel, and the border color will be blue. Let me save it. I think it's a little better. Let's also move it to the right. I'm gonna give it margin left, maybe 30 pixels. And I think we need to move it a little bit down, so let's give it margin top 6 pixels. I think it looks pretty good. And the last thing we're gonna add is gonna be our total count. And let's add a paragraph below the table. So I'm gonna type p tab, and here I'm gonna say task count. And I'm gonna hard code it for now. I'm gonna just put number 1. Let's save it, Control S. Our styling for now is completed, and let's start working on our functionalities. The first functionality we're going to be working on is this submitting new task functionality. And for that, we're going to be using a template-driven form. Let's talk about how it works. There are 2 form types Angular is using, reactive and template-driven form. For this simple project, template-driven format is more appropriate. This is a line from Angular documentation, and that's what we're going to be using. To set it up, we need to go through these steps, and this slide is from my other tutorial. I didn't change it completely on purpose, so we can compare how it was done before Angular 17. In the first step, we're going to import this special module, forms module, but instead of putting it inside this app module TS file, we're going to import inside our component. because it's now a standalone component and all imports will be inside our component. Then we're going to modify our form. We need to add special syntax to that inside our HTML file. Then we'll do a few things inside our TS file. We're going to add some methods there. And at the end, we're going to add some validation. Let's go back to VS Code and import this forms module package. I'm going to go inside our TypeScript file, and inside our imports, I'm going to type forms module. I actually have it on a list, so I can just click on it. As you can see, VS Code helped me and added this line. I'm going to save it, Control S. In the next step, we need to modify our template. Let's look at the slide again. We'll need to give our form tag a local reference. We will also create an onSubmit method, and we will also need to add this ngModel directive and give it a name. To all controls, we're going to use it inside our form. Let's go back to VS Code. Inside this form tag, we're going to place a hash, and we need to give a name to our form. We can call it anything we want. I'm going to call it my form. I'm going to say equal, and in quotation marks, I'm going to say NgForm. Next to it, we're going to use NgSubmit, and we need to put it in parentheses. And inside these quotation marks, we need to place the name of the method that will be executed when we press the submit button. So let's call it onSubmit. This is a method, so we need to add parentheses. And inside the parentheses, we're going to send our form. So we're going to type my form. If we save it, the application is going to break, and it's because we don't have this method inside our TypeScript file. Let me copy it, Control C, let's go there. And here inside our class block, let's make some space, and I'm going to create this method. And we need to give a type to this variable, my form. So I'm going to put colon, and I'm going to say ngForm. We will need a package for that, so I'm going to click on it. And it's right here now. Let me save it. Let's go back to our HTML file. And here inside our input tag, we need to add an ngModel directive. And we need to give it a name. Let's call it a new task. Let me save it. And to see what kind of information we are passing, let's console log it. So I'm gonna go back to our TS file, and here I'm gonna type console log. I have a shortcut for that. I'm gonna pass this variable my form inside. Let me save it. To open the console here, you can press F12 on your keyboard, or there is another shortcut, Ctrl-Shift-I, or you can go to this ellipsis, go to More Tools, Developer Tools, and the console will be open. Sometimes it will open in a different tab, so make sure you're on this console tab. Let me make it a little smaller. And now let me type something here. Let me just do dishes. And I'm gonna press submit. As you can see, I'm getting the information about this ngForm object. Let me go inside this form, and inside these controls, as you can see, I have an object, new task. If I scroll down, I also have a value that says dishes, and there's some other properties we're going to be using later for validation. But for now, we want to grab this value, dishes, and we want to add it to our task list right here in the table. To do that, inside this class, I'm going to create an array, and we can call it anything we want. I'm going to call it task array, square brackets, and inside the square brackets, I'm going to create an object, so curly braces. The first property of our object is going to be task name, colon, and the first task is going to be brush teeth, so in quotation marks I'm going to type brush teeth, comma. The second property is going to be is completed, column, and it's going to be boolean, and the value is going to be false to start with, comma. And one more property we're going to use is going to be is read only, and it's going to be boolean too, and the starting value is going to be true. Let me save it. Let me add another object. I'm gonna copy and paste it, so I'm gonna press here, Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V, and I need a comma at the end of the first object. And let's change it to dishes. Let me save it. So we have a task array with two objects inside of it, and we want to use those tasks to populate this table. Let's go back to our template, and we're gonna use our first structural component, NgFor. Let me scroll down. We're gonna leave our header alone. It's not gonna be changing. But this row, we need to dynamically create it, and we need to create it 2 times. One for our first object in the array, and second time for our second object. In our old project, we used the null syntax, and just to demonstrate how to use it, we're gonna use it here. So here inside our table row tag, we're gonna make space, and I'm gonna type star NgFor equal, and inside those quotation marks, I'm gonna create a variable. I'm gonna say let, and we can call it anything we want. I'm gonna call it item, and here I'm gonna say of task array. This NgFor is underlined because we need to bring a package. I'm gonna go back to our TS file, and inside our imports, I'm gonna put a comma, and I'm going to type NgFor. I'm gonna click on it right here. As you can see, I have this import statement. Now I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna save it here, and let me go back and actually save it here too. The way this directive works, it's gonna iterate through all tasks in this array, and we can use this item object to populate our rows. So here, instead of dishes, I'm gonna use a string interpolation syntax, so it's gonna be double curly braces, and I'm gonna put item dot task name. Let me save it, Control S. As you can see right away, I have 2 rows, brush teeth, and dishes in our table. Now let's change this syntax, our old syntax, to a new syntax that was brought by Angular team starting with version 16. I'm gonna make some space, and I'm gonna type @ symbol for, and in parentheses I'm gonna say again item of task array, semicolon, track item, semicolon, and we're gonna have another variable. In Angular documentation they call it IDX. You can call it anything you want, and here we're gonna use this $ index. We're gonna close our parentheses, open curly braces, enter. This is the new syntax. As you can see, it looks kind of similar, especially the first part. This second part is mandatory, and here if you have a unique identifier, you can just use that item, and let's say if we have a unique ID, you can do ID, but if you don't have an ID, we can just use the whole object. And this track item part is required, and this last part is optional. If we remove it, it's not gonna give us any errors, but we need it. Let me undo it, because we're gonna use this index to track what row is currently being used when we click these buttons, edit, save, or delete. There's another part for this block. At the end of this block, I'm gonna put another @ and I'm gonna say empty, curly braces, and inside those curly braces, I'm gonna put a paragraph, and I'm gonna put there no tasks. So the way it works, if you have something inside this task array, we're gonna populate our table with those rows. But if we don't have anything in here, this block is going to be executed, and this line, there are no tasks, will be displayed. Let me now grab this row. I'm gonna Control C, copy it, Control V, and of course we need to delete this syntax here. So it's just a row, and I'm gonna comment out this old syntax. So to comment out, I can just press Control K, Control C. As you can see, it's all commented out, or you can just delete it. I'm gonna keep it just for reference. Let me save it, Control S. As you can see, nothing changed. This block displayed those 2 rows of objects. Let's finish working on this submit button. So when we put something here and we press submit, a new row is added to this table. So to do that, let's go back to our TS file. And inside on our submit method, under this console log line, I'm gonna modify our array with those new values we're gonna pull from this variable myForm. I'm gonna start typing this, and it means it belongs to this class, task array. I'm gonna just press tab, and I'm gonna use this method push that will add another object to our array, parentheses, semicolon, and inside we're adding another object, so curly braces. For task name, colon, I'm gonna extract that value from this myForm variable, and we don't have to call it myForm. Let's make it a little shorter. Let's just call it form. I'm gonna replace it here, and I'm gonna type it here. I'm gonna say form dot. As you can see, we have this property controls, and I have to define which control I'm using, so I'm gonna put square brackets, and in quotation marks, I'm gonna say new task. That's the name we gave to our control, as you remember. It's right here. Let me go back. And at the end, I'm gonna say value, so dot value, comma. Next is gonna be is completed, and the starting value is gonna be false. And the last property is gonna be is read only, and it's gonna be true. Let me save it, and let's test if it's gonna work. Here I'm gonna type shopping, and when I click submit, we have a new row shopping. Let's now work on a functionality to delete a row. Back to HTML file, and I'm gonna go down to our button, delete, and I'm gonna create a click event. So I'm gonna start typing click, press tab, and we can call it anything we want. Let's call it on delete, parentheses, and inside the parentheses we're gonna pass the index for that row. So this is our index. I'm gonna place it here, and let me copy the name of this method, Control C, and after I save it, Control S is gonna break the application because we don't have this method. I'm gonna come here, and I'm gonna create this method. And we need to give a type to this variable, and let's actually rename it here. It doesn't have to be the same name, IDX. Let's call it index so we know exactly what it is. And the type is going to be number. Let me save it. And let me console log that number so we know that this number actually represents the row. So console log index. Control S to save. Let me add one more line here. Shopping, submit. Let's click on this delete, the first line. We have number 0, and it's because the rows are numbered starting with number 0. So for dishes it's going to be 1, and for shopping it's going to be 2. Let's use this index to remove this item from the array, and the way we're going to do it, here inside the onDelete method, I'm going to type this, task array, and I'm going to use this special method, splice, and it takes 2 arguments. The first one is going to be index, and the second one will be a number how many elements starting at that index we're going to delete. So we're going to be just deleting one row, so that's why it's number 1. Let me save it, Control S. Now let's test if it works. I'm going to add one more item. And let me try to delete brush teeth. I'm going to press delete. It's gone, dishes, and shopping. The delete functionality is working. And let's now work on our edit functionality. We need to add a click event again. I'm going to just copy paste this inside our edit button, and I'm gonna rename it. I didn't grab the quotation mark. Let me fix that. And I'm gonna call it on edit. And just to save time, we will need a similar method for our save button. Let's just do the same thing here. On save. Control S, it's gonna break the application, and let's create those 2 methods. We're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna paste it twice here, and we're gonna rename it. And let's remove all code from here. Save. And to start editing our tasks, we need to change the way we display those tasks on the screen. Let's go back to our template. And in the first cell, instead of just displaying our task, we need to put it inside an input control. We already have it up here, so let's just copy it and just modify it. So item task name, Control V. It's not part of any form, so I don't need this ng model, and I don't need a name. And I don't need a placeholder. And we don't really need an ID here too. Let me delete that. And we're gonna delete this array described by 2. So we're gonna make it really simple here. If I save it right now, Control S, as you can see, we have an input box and this value is on top of it. So let's fix that. Inside our input box, I'm gonna type value. And I'm gonna bring all this inside those quotation marks. So Control X to cut it, Control V to paste it here. Let me save it. As you can see, both tasks are now inside our input boxes. So right now I can actually edit it, but we want to protect it from editing until we click this edit button. To prevent it from editing, I'm gonna use the property read only, and I'm gonna put it at the end. Inside square brackets, I'm gonna type read only. And if I hard coded it with the value, let's say I'm saying true, let's save it. Our fields are now protected from editing. I'm trying to type and nothing is happening. Instead of using a hard-coded value, we're going to change it to our variable that is coming from this item variable. So let me remove true. And I'm going to type item dot is read only. Let me save it. Our input boxes are now protected from editing. When we click on edit button, we want this control to become editable again. So let's go back to our TS file and do it. Here inside our onEdit method, we're gonna use our array again, task array, and we're gonna use this index to access that particular object is read only, and we're gonna say equals to false. Let me save it. Right now when I restart it, all fields are protected, so I cannot type anything, but as soon as I click edit, as you can see, I can start editing those tasks. After we're done editing our task, we want to save it, and the way we're gonna do it, we're gonna grab that value, and inside this array we're going to update our task name. To grab this value from this control, we're going to use a local reference again. Let's go back to our template. And here in the beginning, after the word input, I'm going to put hash. And we can call it anything we want. I'm going to call it task input. Let me save it. And after we add it, we can start using it. Inside our onSave method, together with index, I'm gonna pass that value, and I'm gonna say task input that value. I need to update our onSave method as well. Let me save it, and I'm gonna go to our TypeScript file, and here I'm gonna put comma. Let's call it new task name. And the type is going to be string. Let me save it. And after I get it, I'm going to assign it to our task name. So task name equals new task name. Let me save it and let's see if it works. When project starts, I cannot type anything. I'm going to click edit. I can update it, and I can now save it. To make it a better user experience, let's disable these save buttons on the start of the application, and when we start editing tasks, we're going to disable this edit button. Back to our template. For our save button, at the end, in square brackets, I'm going to add disabled, and I'm going to bind it to our property is read only. Let me save it. Right now, as you can see, our save button is disabled. For our edit button, I'm gonna do a similar thing. So let me just copy it. Control C. Control V. But here it's going to be an opposite. To revert the true value to the false value, I need to add an exclamation mark here. I'm gonna save it. And in our method, inside our onSave method, after the value was saved, we need to revert this value back to true. So let me just copy this line. And I'm gonna change it to true. Save. And let's see if it works. So right now on start, our saves buttons are disabled. When I click edit, we can edit our task, and our edit button is disabled. But as soon as I click save, our array is being updated and our edit again is enabled. We are done working on these buttons, and let's start working on our checkbox. Let me go back to our HTML file, and for our checkbox, I'm going to create a change event. Every time our checkbox is checked or unchecked, this method is going to be triggered. Let's call it onCheck. And I'm going to again pass that index. I need to create this method in our TypeScript file. Let me copy it. And it's going to be a number. Inside this method, let's console log our array. So console log, and I'm gonna say this task array. Save. And when I check one of the boxes, we're gonna see our array. So let's look at it. Right now, as you can see, both values is completed as false. It doesn't matter how many times I click, it's gonna be still remaining false, and it's because we don't bind these values to our checkboxes. Let's go back to our HTML file and fix it. Inside our checkbox input, we're gonna add this check property in square brackets, and we're gonna bind it to our object property is completed. Let me save it. To prove that we have a binding now, we can go back to our template and to our array and change one of those values to true. Control S. As you can see on refresh, we have this dishes checkbox checked. This is just on start of the application, but every time we check it, we need to make sure that we also change the value for this property is completed for an appropriate task. Let's go to our method onCheck. And here we're going to access again our object in our array. And we're going to use our properties completed. And every time we check our checkbox, we're going to change the value to the opposite one. The way we can do it, I'm going to just copy the whole thing and place it on the right side of this equal sign. Semicolon. And here I'm gonna put an exclamation mark to reverse the value on the right side. So I need to fix this value too. Let's say index. Control S, and let's see if it works. If I click on this checkbox brush teeth, you can see that both value is completed at true. Now if I uncheck them both values are now false. At this point, all main functionalities of our project are working. Let's now adjust the styles for our tasks. I want to make it more obvious when we start editing our task, because right now we don't really see that this field is editable. To fix it, let's add some styles. To change styles dynamically in Angular, we can use a special directive, ngClass. And to see how it works, let's go to Angular documentation. Here we're gonna click on Docs, Directives, Attribute Directives, ng class, and here it tells us that before we use it, we need to import a statement. So I can just copy this import statement here, back to VS Code. Let's go up, paste that import statement here, Control V, and I need to grab this value and put it inside our imports array, comma, and I'm gonna save it. I will now go to our template, and here inside our task input, in square brackets, I'm gonna type ng class, inside quotation marks, curly braces, and our first property of this object, it's gonna be a class that we're gonna create. We didn't create it yet, but we're gonna just call it, in single quotation marks, I'm gonna call it edit, colon, and for now I'm gonna say false. I'm gonna put another comma, and in single quotation marks I'm gonna put no edit, colon, and here I'm gonna say true. Let me save it. And we need to create these classes, edit and no edit. Let me just copy it. And let's go to our CSS file. And here I'm gonna create these two classes, edit, and we're gonna have a class that is called no edit. Let me save it. I misplaced this quotation mark too. Let me fix that. Back to CSS. And inside our edit class, I'm going to create a border around our edit control when we start editing it. Border. And let's make it 2 pixels. Solid. And we're gonna give it an orange color. Let me save that. For no edit class, we're gonna create a background. So background color, let's start with light gray. Let me save it. I think it's too gray. Let's make it a little lighter, so I can just click here and let's drag this a little bit higher. Let's try 230. I'm gonna save it, Control S, and I think it looks much better. Right now this edit button is not gonna work because we hard-coded it. We need to replace these hard-coded values with our variables. So let me delete that one. Item is read-only. I'm gonna copy this one. Remove this false. And I need to put an exclamation mark to make it false. Control S. Let me test how it works. So on start, everything is disabled. I'm gonna click edit. We have an orange border. I can type in it. After I save it, the orange border is disappearing and we have a light gray background. Another thing we can do when our task is completed, we want to cross our task. Let's add one more class. Here we're gonna put a comma and let's call it crossed in single quotation marks. I'm gonna type crossed. And the value true or false is gonna come from our property is completed. So it's gonna be item is completed. Now we need to create this class. Let me copy it. CSS file. And our CSS property is gonna be text decoration, line through. Let me save it. As you can see right away, our dishes item is crossed because this is checked. As soon as we uncheck it, it's not crossed. And same with our first item. We don't really need 2 items. Let's just leave 1. I'm gonna remove the second object from our array. Control X, save. So every time our project will start, we're gonna have just 1 item and then we can add more items. Dishes. The value is clear. Shopping. The value is clear. Next, let's work on our validation. We don't want this required field message be here all the time. Only this field is empty. And to do that, let's go to our HTML file. And here at the end of our input tag, let's add a property required. Let me save it. And let's look at something. Right now our field is empty, and if I submit it and look at our form object, scroll down, and here for our valid property it's going to be false, and for invalid it's going to be true. As soon as I add something and submit it, let me look at the next one. The valid property will become true and invalid property will become false. Let's use these properties along with structural directive NgIf to either display this message or remove this message. Let's first use the old syntax. I'm gonna add the structural directive here, and it starts with star NgIf equal, and I need to import this package, so let me copy it. I'm gonna go to our TypeScript file, comma, and I need to make it capital, and I'm gonna point at it, quick fix, update import. So right here now we have this NgIf package. Let's go back. Let me first save it, Control S, Control S here. As you can see right now the message is gone because we don't have any conditions here. Let's use those form properties, so I'm gonna type my form dot, and I'm gonna show this message only if the form is invalid. So invalid, let me save it. The form is invalid because there's nothing inside this input. So I'm gonna start typing something, and as soon as I type something, the message is disappearing, and because this form becomes valid, so this invalid property becomes false. Now let me restart it. And there's one change I want to make. When we start our application, the user didn't even touch this form. So we don't really want to display this message. When the user types something and deleted it, then we want to put this message, but in the beginning we don't want to display it. Let me submit this form without touching anything, and let's look at this property dirty. Right now it's false, and the reason for that because we didn't type anything in this input form. Let me clear it and let me type something. As soon as we type something and submit, this property will become true. Here inside our NgIf statement, we're going to add additional condition, and we're going to just say and my form dirty. Let me save it. As you can see, we didn't type anything in this form and the message is not displaying. As soon as we type something and remove it because the form is dirty, we have this message displayed again. There's one more thing we can do to prevent the user put an empty task in a table, is to disable this button if there's nothing in this field. To do it, let's go to our button, and we're gonna add this property disable in square brackets. And we're gonna use the same thing. If my form is invalid, the button is gonna be disabled because the value is gonna be true. Let me save it. So as soon as the application restarts, because this field is empty and the form is invalid, this submit button will be disabled. We need to fix one more thing. When I enter a task, our form field is not being cleared. Let's fix this really quick. In TS file, in our onSubmit method, at the end of our method, we're going to just reset the form. And we have a special method, reset, parentheses, semicolon. Let me save it. Let's test it. If I add dishes, submit, now the form is reset. Now if I add shopping, submit, the form is reset again. The last thing we're gonna work on in this task count, this number 1 is hard-coded at the moment. Let's change that. In our TS file, we're gonna create a signal, and we could use just a regular variable, but just to demonstrate how signal works, we're gonna use signals. So right here in our class, I'm gonna create a signal, and I'm gonna call it count. As you can see, we need to bring a package, so if I click here, we're gonna have a package right here. And in parentheses, I'm gonna set an initial value. It's gonna be 1. And it's good practice to explicitly show the type. So it's gonna be a number. Let me save it. To display this count on the screen, let's go to our HTML file. And here, instead of number 1, I'm gonna use string interpolation, so double curly braces. And here I'm gonna say count. And for signals, I need to put parentheses because we're calling a function. Let me save it. So as you can see, we have this number 1 displayed. Now, every time we add a task, we need to update that number. Let's go back to our TS file. And inside our submit method, after we add our task to this array, we'll need to update the count. And we will also need to do it in our delete method. Since we have to do it twice, let's put it in a separate method. Let's call it update count. Let's create a variable, array length. And we're gonna grab it from our array task array. So this task array dot length. And in the next line, we're gonna use a special method for signals update. So this count update. And we're gonna use the arrow function. So we'll say value. We can call it anything we want. We'll just say value. Value equals array length. Let me save it. So we have this method, and let's call it from our submit method. And we need to add this to this. And I'm gonna grab the same thing and call this method from our onDelete method. Let's test if it works. We're gonna add a task, submit. So our count is 2 now. Another one, count is 3, and when we delete it, it's going to be 2, 1, and 0. At this point, our application is done. I hope this video was helpful, and thank you for watching.